So I'm going to present a medical informatics perspective of the sensors. So it's not going to be electrical engineering. It's not going to be, I see people, biochemists here, and not going to do, I can do that. So the medical informatics perspective is going to be, so that's the basic outline. I'm going to probably superfluous, but I was confident. I have some students and people that don't know much about this, so I'm going to do some basis of basis of diabetes monitoring. And I'm going to attach the three main group of sensors: glucose, exercise, and diet. And as I said earlier, I want to make a disclaimer. This is not really a systematic review; it's really a random review. So. And I have to disclose I use PubMed, but also I use Google, so which is, yeah, another one. But anyhow, so some basic facts. It's, diabetes, chronic metabolic condition where the body is unable to convert glucose into energy. There are about 10% of US population has it, and apparently there are another 10% that are not, they have it, but they don't know it. But which is more sobering for me was I think that almost 30% have pre-diabetes. So there's a big problem. We need to find definitely monitoring ways to monitor it. There are three types of diabetes. One, two, gestational. Type 1 is due to the lack of insulin, the hormone that basically helps cell to absorb glucose. About 3 million people in the US has it, and the important fact is that there is a large children population. So if you do monitoring in children, that presents a different challenge. Type 2 is due to cells incapacity to use insulin, otherwise called insulin resistance. So the idea is, if we don't manage it well, it can lead to stroke, heart disease, eye problem, kidney, nerves problem, and that I think this I mentioned this because this was going to be used later in monitoring. So we could use some sensor to monitor walking or to monitor heart condition. So it's somewhat indirect diabetes monitoring, but I think it's great for outcomes research. I have a loose sensor taxonomy, and again, I'm not going into great detail. So basically, it's physiological versus behavioral sensor. Physiological sensor measures some variable that, physiological variable, heart rate, blood glucose, body temperature. Behavior, on the other side, measures some behavior like walking, step length, walking speed, and physical activity time, and intensity, bed motion, sleep. There are wearable versus non-wearable. Non-wearable sensors tend to be mostly behavioral, so they are around us and they sense what we do. But there are some non-wearable that actually can measure heart rate or respiration, so some physiological values. These are more suitable for children and for kind of specific populations, such as elderly that basically they don't go, they are not that active, they have some chronic condition, bedridden maybe. So then, you don't want to attach too many things on whatever sensor on the other side. They're great. You can wear, you can be active. Problem is, biggest problem, and I think that keeps what the technology right now in check, is power supply. Why do you need power for a sensor? You need to send the data out. If you don't need to send the data out, then you could actually do other things. But sending data out is a problem. Pacemakers get a lot of data. If we could get every data that is on a pacemaker, would be fantastic. But they cannot afford to lose that power. Then there are physical versus biochemical sensors. Physical, that means we measure some physical quantity, sound, vibration, conductivity of the skin, some current that goes through skin. Biochemical, on the other side, use some biochemical reaction with bodily fluids, such as blood, saliva, sweat. So again, I'm gonna talk about some biochemical sensors. I'm not gonna get into detail. Basically, I don't understand what they do. But I have a bunch of references here in my random review that if somebody was interested in. So mostly my references are reviews. So and then also where you place the sensor. Yeah, and probably that's not the best choice of words. Interior of the body versus exterior. So obviously we would like to have more exterior sensor than interior, like pacemaker, smart pill, and some of them are at the surface with the blood glucose, the continuous monitoring where you stick. So exterior, actually, that's where the most wearables are. And that would be the ideal thing, to have something wearable that doesn't have to stick your skin, or that's where the most I try to actually stay around this area. So this is, I feel that I have an informatics perspective that means my brain thinks data and algorithms. So the typical diabetes management framework here is the person has to measure basically 4 things: glucose level, food intake, physical activity level, and medication compliance. So typically that was done. So this framework, this is the actual framework, so it's not much new, I think. So you get the diet, if somebody keeps a diet, a level of the diet, a level of activity, and the level of glucose, that could go in some database, and some physician could actually see what the person is doing. What is new, I think, what is, at least at this moment, is this idea of Internet of Things. So where each of these devices, so each of these acquisition is done by sensors that actually are embedded in some devices that are integrated on the internet. So this is called, in other words, is called Internet of Things. So everything is going to be interconnected. So the idea is it's going to have so it needs a sensor to have an automatic input into the database. So I think this is basically where things are, and the trend is going. More data, automatic taken without user input, and going in somewhere in some clouds. Why would you like automatic input? Well, the main idea is that clearly it's better compliance. I try to keep logs of stuff. After 2 days, I fizzle out. You have more data points, so from our point, diabetes point of view, it's better blood glucose control. However, from my point of view, again, as I said, I see data when I see a problem, so it's more relevant to data mining. You can get into find more details about the problem. It's obviously more convenient for the user. I don't have to go type stuff. Also, you can enable more behavior change method because you have a just-in-time data sharing. So it's one thing where I know I'm doing something wrong right now, and I say, don't do it, don't eat that dog or hot dog. Hot dog. Dog would be good. So as opposed to having remorse, I shouldn't have it. So I think this is a big change. And I have a note on which for a data person, I had a reservation when I sit on an NIH study station. This idea of behavior change techniques. So these are very important in all these diabetes management and wellness interventions. And I actually have a record where they say they have an ontology of it, which I like. I like ontologies and taxonomy. So they have 26 behavior change techniques that could be used in wellness apps. And there is another reference that basically most apps use between 2 and 7. And as an aside, in that panel, if the panel saw an app without any behavior change reference technique, they wouldn't ever actually look at the graph. So that was the introduction. So if somebody would, I mean, obviously the diabetes researchers here, you know, I have to excuse my ignorance, so I have to, but I have to do a little bit of introduction. So I start with the blood glucose monitoring sensor because basically it's the most important measurement that you do. And usually done by finger pricking. The good part about this is accurate because you basically get the blood. But again, you get only 5 to 7 measurements daily, so you cannot do any computation. You cannot do trend. You cannot say, oh, it's imminent high is coming up or imminent low is coming up. Whereas with the continuous glucose monitoring, CGM, you can get data every 1 to 5 minutes. However, it's not accurate because you don't go in the blood. It's interstitial. Most CGMs are interstitial fluid. And but however, you can actually see a trend, and you say, hey, if you do this in half an hour, you run out of speed. And on the long run, this actually leads to lower. So CGM actually leads to lower A1C values. So it's, you know, this time a study that was published. The interesting part is that from the control, again, as an electrical engineer, it's a control problem here. So you have a sensor that actually manipulates controls a pump, so which is kind of a cool thing. So this is actually called. So if you use the CGM to control an insulin pump, that's called artificial pancreas. And I have to say I had a different impression, and I've read things online saying, hey, this is not artificial. So that's why I put it in quotes here. So that's the basic idea of the artificial pancreas. You get the CGM sensor, continuous monitoring the glucose, then sends the data. So here you see that thing that I said, the link. You have a Bluetooth device that embedded that sends the data to a local receiver. The local receiver actually says it needs to send to some computing device that computes the amount. So there is some computation. This control algorithm device. So there is some computation that gets into calculating the dose. Eventually, the dose is transmitted to the insulin pump that actually pumps insulin into the body. So that's the artificial pancreas. People are, apparently the users, they say they change their lives, but still, I think we have a long way to go. So I mentioned A1C again for non-specialists. It's a key variable in diabetes management. So it's a blood test that actually provides information about the person's average level of glucose. So even if you go to the doctor and you say you're good today, you can tell that in the last 3 months you basically just splurged, and ate a lot. So it's also called with glycogen, hemoglobin, and other names. And it's actually, it integrates basically how it's somewhat an integral, a natural integral of the level of the glucose in the last 3 months, which is the life of a red blood cell. So this is, again, this is the best, this is how you tell if this something is working in diabetes management. And it is due to the fact that actually glucose attached to hemoglobin in the red blood cells. So basically, you can tell how much the more you have, the more attachment you have. So a normal A1C level is kind of allowed around 5%. So if you have more than that, that means your blood sugar was more than. And this is actually a cool thing that you have this natural integral of the values. So now I concentrate on the continuous method because I think this idea of generating data and processing in the cloud and is what is gonna is everybody's going to. So there are like I classify two main methods, invasive methods where something is sticking in, and non-invasive method where people are trying to use other fluids or computational algorithm, which that's somewhat where I'm coming from. So I have to disclose 2C is my background. So that's what I understand. The rest of them I review it here. So in the fluid continuous CGMs, so the main brands are Medtronic, Abbott, and Dexcom. Apparently Dexcom is the most advanced. But there are actually, the market is actually pretty tight. There are new sensors coming up with innovation that probably new electrodes, probably new algorithms. Algorithms have a big part here, so that's something that, and nobody mentions, and I guess that's the secret of the company. So basically there are some two electrode construction of platinum and silver, the dual electrode. The idea is that they actually get replaced every week or so because they actually have this loss of accuracy due to fibrous encapsulation. Well, problem is also that they are invasive. You have to stick that thing in your skin, and because they are interstitial fluid, they have another problem. There's a delay in the measurement. So because the blood needs 20 minutes to travel from blood to tissue. And those are taking care of the algorithms, but you can imagine if you exercise in that time, the algorithm might not know that. So that's why you need the other sensors, that some sort of exercise and dietary sensor to actually make this accurate. Otherwise, you can overshoot or undershoot. And then problem that I was actually surprised is you still need to calibrate this because of probably of this fibrous encapsulation developing over time. You have to calculate it. So I'm not sure exactly why, but that actually kind of made me a little bit. I thought it was cool until I read that. Okay, so this is the one example that is found on the market. So this is the. I'm not sure if you can see. Can you see the wire here? Yeah. This one. There's a wire. So the wire is like about that big, which I don't know. So it has the sensor is only the blue thing, and then the thing on top is the transmitter. So you basically you replace the blue thing every week and you keep the transmitter. And the way you actually put it, you shoot it in your skin right here using kind of like a syringe. So you go, well, probably it's not too bad. I don't know, I didn't try, but it's probably not too bad. So you get measurements every five minutes, and you have the interesting part. You have because of that power management that I was telling you. So look at this thing. This is pretty small here. So you have to transmit. You have a transmission pretty short range to a local receiver, and that can transmit actually to a phone. Well, if your phone is around, it will kick off the phone. And this reading online, like, this is an interesting discussion. Apparently, the company made some mistakes going from G4 to G5. So now you cannot actually, if you don't have the phone around, you cannot discharge the receiver to the phone, which I thought it was just a mistake, but anyhow. But that's the idea. So you can see how, the phone, so then the cloud has the data. My first question was where the data is, And I think from the research point of view, if you want to do a research with that data, can you actually get the data? So that's my perspective on it is. Sure, you can see, like in the Fitbit, sure, I can see my profile. But the problem is, can I actually, for research, get the data from there and use it for me? I mean, I don't want to copy it by hand or get screenshots, which is ridiculous. So they have this app also, and that's where I think the trend is coming, and then the behavior change, the new behavior change ideas come, because you have this sharing of your data, so you can designate followers of your data, and they can see real time your data. So I think this is that idea with the kids. Before you couldn't tell what your kid is doing. I mean, you're just trusting that he's doing the right thing, but now you can actually. So I think this is kind of where many in our CDTR grant, where is dissemination and management. I think this is a big plus. Now, intravascular blood glucose monitor apparently weren't that successful. There are only few commercial, and the big problem is this thrombin effect. So that if you put that sensor in the bloodstream, it just clogs up pretty quick. So there's a paper that I cited, and it's not too old, and there is apparently that there is also, this is for hospital care, so you probably don't keep that for long, just for the critical situation. And there are some commercial ones where you just stick a thing in a vein, get some blood once in a while, analyze it by kind of the same method with those two electrodes, and then return the blood back. So there's a picture in the paper. It looks like a machine that sucks blood and puts blood back. So, but the interesting part is that it doesn't really work for home use. Now, the more exotic sensors these are that exist commercially, and the new part about it, I think, is the data stream. Now the idea is we like something that doesn't stick, it doesn't break, and doesn't hurt. So I heard about this thing. I don't have big details because obviously it's not commercially, so they're pretty tight. So Google Alphabet, which is the new side of Google Research, they created this contact lens, smart contact lens, that would actually measure glucose level. My question is, where do you get the power from? I mean, I don't get that, but it's so small. All the circuit here is just. But anyway, they say they do it, but. So there's a salivary biosensor. I get this a little more. So there's place to put a denture, a mouth guard, and to put like the wireless transmitter. It's pretty big chunk here, and I can see how to put a battery and how to change it. Problem is, I'm not sure if I don't know, maybe a word that except instead of being brick. So I'll probably take it. But again, the problem is though. So and again, apparently this platinum silver electrode combination is used. So that seems to be the main technology, but it's not the only one. So there are nanotechnologies coming. Apparently, it's coming big into the field, and there's a tattoo sensor, which. So this paper reviews a bunch of sensors, and that's how I took it from that. I think it's pretty good. I don't think they have a paper on this again because of the patent or whatever. But that seems to be something that I'm not sure if it's interstitial fluid or sweat. It's tattoo, I suppose. From what I understand, there are some micro needles that get into the skin, so it could be still interstitial fluid. But it's still, the needles are more, it's not really invasive. It's more like, when you get a tattoo, you get some prick, but not. Yeah, it's small, so it's not that it's gonna be conspicuous. You can run on it. It's not like you have the pump or the transmitter. And the problem with the transmitter, from what I read, is that you could forget it. You can decouple, you put it here, and then you go. With phone, same thing. So that creates a problem to have the connection to the data source with you all the time, which I have to get my phone like once a week at home. Well, this still needs to be replaced, and they didn't solve some correlation between the brightness. So apparently it's a fluorescent idea. Some nanosensor that gets fluorescent as the glucose level increases. Now, apparently the correlation is not great yet, and well, that's what we want. But I thought it was a good idea, was a nice idea. Another approach, which is really, as I was telling you, kind of my way of viewing things, is this computational. So you use external measurements as less invasive as you can, but then you use a lot of them to be able to compute something that is correlates with the blood glucose. So there is this body media senseware pro armband, so apparently it's commercial. This thing has a bunch of sensors in it, so 5 sensors, a 2-axis accelerometer, so I'm not sure why it's not 3, but heat flux sensors, so something that measures how much heat you get to the skin. A thermometer, also called thermistor, to measure the skin temperature and the outside temperature. And then you have this GSR, galvanic skin response, which is measuring basically the skin conductivity. So this can be used in stress detection. So when you get stressed, you sweat more. So if you measure the conductivity of the skin, it's a measure of stress. There are some watches that have that in wearable sensors. And then you have an ECG electrode. So you probably heart rate is probably important for the measuring the energy expenditure. So, but the key of the thing are the computational algorithm, and that's really what my expertise is. So you actually compute all these measurements from those sensors, GSR, so the galvanic response, steps, number of steps, heat flux, kinetic energy, so the probably from the accelerometers, those strikes, energy expenditure, physical activity, heart rate, and the activity level. So then you use a bunch of machine learning, support machine, hidden Markov models, decision trees, based on these features to actually compute all these things, which is pretty cool. I mean, you can compute not only physical activity or energy expenditure, but you can compute what you want, what we want, the glucose level. So that's actually interesting. I think that might, and this approach, we actually tried this approach with non-wearable sensors, because my field of study is elder care. So there we have sensors in the environment. So the idea is, can you do that for elderly? So we had that in mind at one point, but the grant wasn't funded. So anyhow, so now I said that was the glucose monitoring. We need to monitor the exercise level for many reasons, and one reason is that actually it will help you improve glucose level estimation. So they need the continuous glucose monitoring. They need some sensor that give you the level of activity. Otherwise, they will undershoot. So this is, bioharness. I'm not fond of things that go across chest, but it's an easy way to get the heart rate, and it's probably less conspicuous than wearing something on you. It's a 3-axis accelerometer, and the heart rate monitoring, and the accuracy 3 plus minus 3 beats per minute. I think for the algorithm's sake, it's probably good enough. It's just, it's not needed to be perfect accurate. And apparently the CGM have this predictive blood glucose suspend algorithm already, based on, I think, some knowledge, some physiology, However, if you use this harness, you actually improve the prediction by 15%, which is significant. Other wearables. Wearable is actually probably the biggest plus here. I mean, you can see almost everybody wearing a wearable thing right now. So they can do step counting, they can have GPS, they can have measure heart rate, sleep quality, they can be waterproof, so you can swim with them. Now, some brands, the main brands are obviously Fitbit and Garmin. However, there are some, and I actually like to be waterproof. Even if you're sweat a little more like I do, you can damage. I damage a Fitbit in half a year. However, if you want to do some research that requires many people, like a large, it's hard to actually invest $150 for it. So $60 is actually a cheaper alternative that can give you the data. Again, the problem is, I think when you want to do this, can you get the data in your hands? If you cannot, then that's a, and I'm not sure if Garmin does it. I know Fitbit started to share the data. Then one of the more things, the more sensor using in such as this Actigraph bracelet, it has a history in interventions that require sleep monitoring. And the reason is it has more, they provide total sleep, some sleep measures. And they have actually more, they have a dual accelerometer, not just one. They have a magnetometer for the, you want to see if somebody is in the bed or straight. And gyroscope, which is also give you some the same measurements. So the area where I work and I understand more, and it's non-wearable activity sensors, and I have to disclose this as I think that we do in our lab, and we do in target place with elderly. So Wi-Fi radar, depth camera, passive IR sensors, and bed sensor. So the depth cameras are actually coming. You know, if you have kids, you've probably seen the Xbox, the Kinect gaming camera. The cool part about it can give you a 3D image. So here is like somebody about to fall. So you can see basically, so the interesting part is that it's easy to process. For the image processing point of view, I can easily extract the foreground, which is the person that moves. And see, it is reasonable, privacy protecting. You don't see the guy really. I mean, the skin could be without clothes. However, you cannot put it in the bathroom though, and then you still need one for each room. So if you want to see the activity in the entire apartment, it doesn't really work well with just one. However, this you can use it to compute even in one room, and that's what we do in target place. We compute these walking measures, walking speed, walking stride time, which I think if somebody has a diabetes, like like a leg problem, like a neuropathy, then that could actually help. You can assess the effect of your intervention. Obviously, in elderly, walking is a telltale of it's an overall. It's kind of like an A1C for being old. So if you walking speed is going down, you are going down. So it's a global evaluation, which is pretty good. So to go around going one sensor in each room, you could do Wi-Fi radar, which is basically your Wi-Fi, your home Wi-Fi. So when you walk in, when you walk in your Wi-Fi field at home, you actually disturb the field. So you could actually get record a disturbance, and you can tell what you're doing. This is obviously not very high resolution. You cannot tell that I'm moving my hand like that. However, it's pretty cool because you need one thing one device. You already, most of you already had the device, which is the router, the Wi-Fi router. Well, probably the method is sensitive. There are probably some prototypes, but now you cannot buy it. That will be actually, make our life way easier.
What if there are more than one person, and then you can?
Well, okay, so these are that's one of the problems that you're having with this technique. You have to come up with algorithm to do people detection. So it's not easy, and that's probably one of the reasons they didn't. But many of these non-wearable things, they have this trouble. Like even in the Kinect, you have to be pretty good to differentiate the people because you only have the shape. So you have to do some calculations. And in a Kinect, for example, you actually do you make a plot of height versus the walking speed. So you hope the two people are not of the same height or they don't walk the same, right? So and usually don't if there are two people in the room. So you cluster the data points and you say this is the lady, this is the man. That I said you could measure physiological variables without actually non-intrusive. I mean non-invasive. So it's this method that actually is based on balistocardiogram, which is the mechanical motion of the heart. The balistocardiogram actually is written here. It looks a little bit like something like the sound that you will hear from the heart using the electronic stethoscope. So I'm showing here the stethoscope. Actually, this is our signal here. The cool part is that we can actually see here that this is the waveform from the sensor. The larger waveform is the respiration. So we take that one out with computation. So we have the respiration, but also then we have the heart rate. And that's probably the same kind of order of magnitude, plus minus 3 beats. But also we can get the motion in the bed. So, and that was the question we had in that grant that you proposed. Can we actually estimate blood glucose and energy expenditure? We're using this thing for the person in bed. Is that for bedridden people or well, so apparently we didn't phrase the problem very well. That we wasn't funded. So now the third big deal is to do diet monitoring. So this is probably the hardest problem. Obviously, if you keep track of your diet, then there is clear advantage. You can lose weight and manage your weight gain and diabetes. There are many dietary apps that were developed. They all relate on you put the stuff in. And as I was telling you, I believe that if you find a way to automatically get stuff in, that would be way easier, or to measure something. So possible technologies, you can use the sound, you can use visual, like some cameras, you can use some inertial accelerometers. So somewhat the same technology that we used before, but the idea is what you get. So you can use electroglottography, so the motion of the epiglottis, electromyography, which is the muscles here, and other capacitive and periodic sensors. So some ideas people have were like a smart tablecloth. So you have a tablecloth, every time you dig into the food, it records it. So it tells how many times you dig, how many times you cut. So it can tell you, well, you are eating fast or you ate too much. You have to have, obviously, to make some assumptions. Many of these sensors, they work more in the longitudinal approach, where you watch the behavior of a person and see if it's going down, or, as opposed to the transversal, like you take a population and how many times do I cut and how many times I don't cut. So all this, I think all this research in this area doesn't really work well in a transversal design. Then you can use a video camera. Obviously, if I have a camera right here, you can tell how I chew and when I put stuff in my mouth. Doppler radars. So we use radars like in elder care to measure steps. So basically, you can detect periodic motion like mastication. Now, more complicated sensors are acoustic sensors. So this is like here, the acoustic sensor is basically a microphone that you wear somewhere here. And apparently, I read I should have read that paper. It says that it can detect 19 types of food. So I probably you have to detect the crunchiness if you how the sound. I mean, it could be with 86% accuracy. That's interesting. So now visual sensor, somebody made this button that you wear right here, and apparently what this is funny. So that transmits to iPhone, and then you do computation there. Like, and I believe that you could probably see color. All these sensors, I think what they say you need to have a database with food and data that you are kind of judging here by similarity. And you could the inertial sensor that you have a wristband that actually can tell you how many times you went to your mouth, so you can count the number of beers you had probably if you know your mouth size. Now more complicated sensors, and I think I don't have any experience how you actually would do this, but so you have this sensors that are the epiglottis. You have two electrodes here, and then every time you see a motion, you send a signal. So you have some color. So if somebody did a color for this, that probably is serious. They might be using like people that need help swallowing and yeah, and the EMG says that if you electromyography, you put your electrodes here and you see how the mastication muscle work. So they say it's been widely used. So I have to pull that. Other more sensors that I think my specialty is in this process. So I think I see people trying to detect the food, the type of food. So I can believe that if you use the camera and the microphone together, and you could actually detect colors, and if you have a database, you can see, and if you are consistent, you have each set of things, you could probably detect the type of food. Now, you cannot. It's hard to detect the quantity, so that's why you would need a depth camera, which gives you the depth. So if you have a bowl of pasta like that, you can tell, well, that's all pasta. If you look at it with a cold camera, you only see it's big, but it's hard to estimate the volume. So I guess it's possible if we want to do this. So that's my conclusion. I think the new sensor will change the diabetes management. I mean, it's changing it right now. And the main idea, I think, that they produce more data, which for data mining guys, say, sure. So that thing with big data is no big thing, no big problem. We can process it. But also it needs, the data needs algorithms, which needs, I think you need a lot of research, interdisciplinary research, physiologists, biochemists, and really clinicians that could actually get this correlated and make sense of it. So these are some references. That's a random references. I try to not to be more than 2-3 years old, and the bunch of reviews. I think the main journals are Journal of Diabetes Science and Technology and Sensors, where I found more. I actually published and I review for Sensors myself, so I give it a good journal. So this is my presentation.